Woo, Fijian sunset, yes. Okay. Oh, can't go wrong with UB40. Cannot go wrong with UB40. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Dr. Trish. Rapper Sad, I'm trying to shut the music off. Nice to see everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Dr. Trish Ramper Sad. And today I'm taking you to the islands, okay, with one of my really, really great friends. Yes, this is the Core.Behavioral Therapist, Dr. Trish Ramper Sad, in case you couldn't hear me before. And if you like that song, it's called Fijian Sunset by UB40. And I am here with Donna. Donna is one of my really great friends. Donna V. How do you say your last name, Donna?
It's Vaubula.
Vaubula. Yeah. Thanks, Donna, for coming. Donna has a production company called Donna Vaubula Productions, and her husband is also the owner and designer of Vaubula Wear. And I'm actually wearing one of their sweatshirts. It's really cool.
Hey! You look cute in it too.
Thank you. And Donna was actually one of the first people to run the first Fijian Asian fashion show, right, in San Francisco. Am I correct?
It is the first. Apparently, according to people in the Bay Area, yes, it is the first sort of like fashion production. And so we had like everybody from the South Pacific that was participating in it. It was open to everyone in the Pacific and also to the islanders across the globe, like Trinidad and Tobago.
Not many people know this, but Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana in South America have very similar cultures to Fijians. So that's pretty cool. Trinidadians and Fiji, it's island folk. And it's just such a rich culture, and I can totally relate. But Donna, this is a mental health podcast, and we talked a little bit about some things we're going to talk about here. I wanted to ask you, what got you into fashion in the first place?
I think it all started when I was a lot younger. I used to read fashion magazines, and growing up, my parents were like, you need to get into a profession, something that will pay the bills. And I've always been inspired by fashion and by the artistic and creative approach in it. And so I went to New Zealand I was living there for 5 years.
Shout out to the Kiwis.
Yeah.
New Zealanders are called Kiwis, right?
Yes, that's right. And so
I have some friends from New Zealand, so I think they'd appreciate that shout out.
Shout out to all the Kiwis, yeah. Yeah, and I think it was my time in New Zealand that was a great influence for me personally, because it allowed me to grow and to see, especially in Wellington, where there was like the creative scene is like very active. And I got to see a lot of things. They had these huge museums and all these jazz singers. And one of my flatmates was also a jazz singer at the time. And so a lot of exposure to the art sector, things that I wouldn't be able to experience while I was in Fiji. And so when I went back home, I thought it would be a great idea to start Fiji Fashion Week. And then I was about 28 at the time, and everything, it sort of progressed from there.
That's so awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Because, we talked a little bit about this. Donna's models range, and they're so diverse as far as size and plus modeling and stuff. And I wanted to ask you, how did you come about to being more diverse as far as body image? A lot of people out there have body image issues and whatnot, especially women of color.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your take on that.
Right. I mean, it's certainly evolving now in America. And back in Fiji, when we had first started off, we kind of had like the cookie cutter model where we had like, you had to be a certain height and you had to be a certain shape to be modeling on the runway. But, you know, thank goodness the narrative has changed. And so we've got all these celebrities and icons who are using their influence to create a more body positive movement. And so we had like Rihanna with Fenty, we had Tommy Hilfiger with Zendaya,
Yeah.
and they did the, you know, they had their show at Paris Fashion Week. And so it's something that you really can't ignore. Like the brands are becoming more successful because they're becoming more inclusive.
Right.
And so people really wanted to see themselves on the runway, and people are more accepting when it's more real and more authentic. And that's what we really wanted to embrace,
Yeah.
just the authenticity and just having people come to the show, enjoy the show, see themselves, you know, being part of the show and part of the community.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. That's so good. You know, with body image issues, and I really so appreciate how exclusive your shows are. I was wondering if you can talk a little bit. This is a mental health podcast, and I wanted to
Mhm.
ask you, what sort of mental health issues do you see with within the community
Yeah.
of fashion and perhaps the Fijian community? Not that you speak for everyone. I'm, you know, just your opinion, things that you've noticed.
Mm. You know, like mental issue, it's sort of like a taboo subject. You really don't get to talk about it a lot, especially when you're combating issues like depression and anxiety, you know, bipolar, certain issues like that. It's sort of like frowned upon. You, because we come from a Christian country as well, it's, you automatically think that it has to be a spiritual thing where we need to pray about it,
Mhm.
and it's not openly discussed.
Right.
But things are starting to change within the Pacific Island community, where people addressing issues like depression and anxiety and stress
Yeah.
and being bipolar. But in the fashion industry, of course, you have to be, you know, like a lot of creatives. There, you know, we have bipolar. We had Kate Spade, who struggled a lot with depression and anxiety.
Right.
And you know, when these events happen, like the death of Kate Spade and Alexander McQueen, the fashion industry really had to wake up and see the kind of effect they were having on people. You know, like
Wow.
constant competition, constant reevaluation of yourself, and having to you know, the pressures of society as a whole. And so it was, it really shook the fashion industry, and people began to discuss like, hey, like what's happening in your life? Are you okay? You seem kind of stressed. And so it's great that things are evolving, and that we're being more open-minded and open to discussing these certain issues. Yeah.
No, that's really great. That's so true because so it sounds like people are more open to discussing what's been happening, given what happened with Alexander McQueen and Kate Spade. So there's awareness around mental health, which is really great. Um,
Mm.
you know, in the fashion industry, I know there was, I don't, we didn't talk about this, but um, I was actually listening to another podcast, and this woman who used to be a model said that she smoked a lot of cigarettes, and she used to use substances in order to remain a certain figure. Do you see substance abuse and those type of issues still going on today in the fashion industry as far as what you've seen?
I think there's a certain level of addictions that you do see that are accepted by society, you know, like alcoholism. I mean, it's not accepted, but you definitely can see that there's a progression towards that, where it's alcohol abuse or, you know, substance abuse, marijuana, stuff like that. And
Some
it's
states are actually in the United States. Some states have have legalized it, right?
yeah,
Marijuana too in some states. So yeah.
yeah, so they've legalized it, and then there's always a moderation to things, and um, with fashion, because it's a lot of high pressure, because your work is open to criticism and it's open to feedback from anyone and everyone. It's not like you're an accountant and you have like the numbers, and it's only evaluated
Yeah.
by the managing director, but this is like an artwork that's curated by a person, and like their journey, and it's open for scrutiny. And so that level of pressure can sort of like lead you into you know substance abuse, and if you don't monitor your well-being, and check in with people.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's like that for the fashion industry. Yeah.
Right. A lot of self-medication going on
Mm.
and what have you. Yeah. You touched on something about what I heard was about your creative side and how vulnerable creatives can be, especially yourself. You're putting your work out there, and it is out there for the world to scrutinize. And how do you deal with that? Because you have, how do you personally deal with that?
I think it takes a lot of years of, you have to have a lot of years behind you to kind of like ignore the noise. When we did the South Pacific Fashion Luncheon, a blogger sent me a message and said, "Oh, it's not like the fashion week that you normally produce, and the models aren't like fashion week type." And so for me, I knew what the purpose was behind the show. I knew the kind of platform I wanted to create. And sometimes if you remind yourself about the things, why you're doing it and the purpose behind it,
That's
and
so
if
good.
you always visualize the end goal, then you won't get distracted by the noise, that,
Yeah.
that everyone makes. Yeah, and then if you surround yourself with the right people who always guide you and who always kind of be like your go-to, then it's a lot easier, as opposed to just being alone and trying to create things on your own and not having that support system.
Yeah, doing life on your own. Do you rely on, you said that you're Christian. Do you rely on your Christian community and speak to elders, or do you have a mentor? Do you get
Yeah.
someone?
I mean, we always talk, like we always check in with our senior pastor. I have uncles who are pastors as well. Also the wives of the pastors, and my aunts were
Mhm.
very spiritual. And sometimes when I'm going through things, I normally check in with them and talk to them about my issues. My husband is also, like one of my greatest supporters. He doesn't really care about all the noise, and he always tries to direct me to be
Yeah.
more focused on what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Dan, who is the creator. I think we mentioned him before, of Vaubula Boy
Yeah.
Bear. So that's pretty awesome that you have so much support. You did mention that the Christian community, they do pray about if something happens and whatnot, but now they're being aware of mental health issues. And I'm
Mhm.
led to this verse that basically we're supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And I
Yeah.
really believe that. I believe that, if you're Christian, or, you're part of a church, yes, you pray, you fast, you do what you have to do, but you also have to put action into it. And it's really refreshing to hear that Fiji and other islands are actually putting action to really, taking care of mental health issues within the community and onwards. So that's just pretty awesome to hear.
Yeah.
You're also a great leader. I'm in a couple of group chats with you. What's it like for you to be a leader during this year of COVID, of 2020? Because you had a lot of, just like many other people out there, you had a lot of different things that you were going to do this year. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's it's just been quite the challenge having to navigate through the the restrictions. We know that there's people that have lost their jobs, and for me as an event planner, it definitely has been like we've had to like reset and sort of think how we can move forward next year. If the same the same conditions were set for next year, like how are we gonna work around the parameters? And so thank God for technology. We still are able to keep in touch with family, and we have online church, and we still have people that are checking in and and still keep maintaining that contact and seeing a lot of online content being created as well. So it's definitely changed the way events and work is structured. But things have sort of like slowed down, of course, for this year. But I'm pretty hopeful for next year, and just seeing if
Yeah,
this is going to happen again, then we'll have to, work around the conditions that are given. Because this year we thought, okay, 6 months, but
yeah,
then it turned out to be like an entire year.
right. Even maybe even more than a year,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm.
How do you lead
Oh,
the people in the models and people in your production team? How do you lead them during these times?
I definitely check in with the models, see how they're doing. I think one of them just gave birth like
Yeah,
uh, last week, and so always call them up, text them, message them, and so that's uh, that's the only way that we can keep in contact. Um, they had one time where they sort of relaxed the conditions when we went on a hike, but we haven't really caught up with all the models because we're not able to.
yeah.
But we definitely check in from time to time with them, see how they're doing. And I'm friends with most of them, so I do see their activities online.
I'm
And
one of them. Okay, I'll just put it out there. I can tell she wants to say she'll do it. Should I say it or should I? Yes, you can say it. I'm one of them.
Exactly. So just like you, Trish, we always follow your Instagram and social media, and
Yeah,
comment on things and see how you're doing and how everyone else is doing and the group as well. So it's been good. Even though we can't see in person, can't see each other in person and meet in person, it's still good to see that everybody's still progressing and still doing things, And yeah, it's been good. And you've changed quite a bit, like from
uh-oh.
no, I mean, like we've seen the level of growth from the time that we created the luncheon.
Yeah,
A lot of the models have really stepped up and sort of like um, just evolve beautifully, like with their work and getting out there and doing their photo shoots and their podcasts. And so it's great just to see people grow and develop, and that's definitely what we had in mind when we created the luncheon. Yeah.
that's so awesome. The luncheon was a luncheon slash fashion show. So yes, I've seen that too with other people who have grown, and you really opened up a door for a lot of people by that fashion show and luncheon. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh,
That was
you're
pretty
welcome.
pretty awesome to be part of it. Thank you for asking me to be part of it.
You're
Um,
welcome.
yeah, it's just really, really great. What's it like for you to be here in America during this time and not be with your family? I know you said it was difficult, but not be in Fiji. Like, what's that
Yeah.
like for you? I know you have Dan, so it's probably easier, but
Yeah.
what's it like for you? Because I know your dad and a bunch of your family are still back there in Fiji.
Yeah, majority of our family live back home, and I'm fortunate that being married at this time to Dan as well, because he's a good communicator, and we're always going back and forth about issues and about life in general. But it's we do miss home, and we do miss Fiji. And but being in America has also provided a lot of opportunities, things that we wouldn't be able to have access to. We've been to events and workshops, and met people that you only see like on TV, and you'd only see on your social media. Yeah. So there's and we've also just been challenged in the way that we handle things and manage things, and being part of you know bigger church groups as well, um, definitely has set the bar high for us. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I'm gonna shift here a little bit to therapy, because therapy is also a form of self-care, as well as being part of church, and
Mm.
being around family and communication. I heard communication from you. It's a big deal. Do you think um, Fijians or Pacific Islanders are into therapy, or are they now getting their feet wet into it? Because I know in my culture, it's very taboo, right? In the Trinidadian culture, it's like when I was growing up, my mom would say, "Oh, I don't want to tell my business to other people, like keep it within the family, keep." But sometimes that's just not healthy. Sometimes you need to get professional help, especially this year with isolation and people being away from one another, no physical contact, that sort of thing. What do you think about therapy?
I think therapy is always therapy is good, when it leads to change and it leads to growth and development. And so, like, the Western version of therapy hasn't been, it's not as pervasive. I mean, like, it's quite foreign to Pacific Islanders. And so we have therapy in different ways, where we're talking to like people who have more life experience. But having an actual therapist, those are new things. And it's I mean, especially with mental health issues as well, because Fiji is still a developing country, and we're still talking about these issues. So having a therapist is also a new concept as well. But I
Yeah.
think it's also becoming widely accepted. Like, we do have therapists in Fiji, and that help us with combating certain issues, and we have therapists like pastors, but uh, it's still a new thing, and it's not like it's something that we're starting to get used to. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
Mhm.
awesome. Same here from my culture and community. I think that's one of the reasons why I also started this podcast, because mental health is a huge issue. And in the
Mm.
United States, like, people don't know. I think people know this, but I'm correct. I believe Joe Biden's wife is a clinical psychologist as well as an educator. So that's a big deal. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the United States as far as mental health is concerned, and possible benefits and what have you. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, thanks for being so vulnerable and talking about these things, Donna. I wanted to ask you, what's next for you? What do you have planned next?
Hopefully babies next year, but
Nice.
what's
Dan,
next?
you hear that? You hear that? Dan, get crack-a-lacking.
That's right.
Hey, you gotta healthy marriage, healthy sex life, all that good stuff. It's cool. Lots of babies being born, and I could see that happening all over the place.
Oh gosh. Yeah, so what's next? Fashion week is next on the horizon. We're not gonna say too much about it.
Yeah,
But given that we've gone through this entire year with all the restrictions in place,
yeah,
it's easier to work out, okay, how are we gonna do events next year, and how we're gonna plan it out, because we've gone through this entire year with like the social distancing, the masking, and so it'll be a lot easier next year. With the if the same thing were to happen and we'd have to be like 6 feet apart and doing masks and everything. So I'm hopeful for 2021, hopeful to see more models and different designers and
Your
yeah.
designers are great. It's like if you have a chance, if anyone has a chance next year to actually come to the show when it happens, socially distanced, of course, and everything. The designers are the designers are phenomenal. It's just an array. It's so diverse. The clothing, the art, the artistic value in it. It's just really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see you next year.
Yeah, I'll be there. Hopefully. I'll try to be there.
A fabulous plus size model.
Oh yes, I'll try to definitely be there. Yep. As long as things are safe. Is there anything that you'd like to tell the Fijian community for this year? Any words of, I guess, celebration or any words of inspiration, lifting them up this year? Anything you want to say?
Gosh, I think there's a lot that's been said. We're just thankful that this year has come to an end, and just to be safe and to wear your mask, of course, and we were just wishing everybody a healthy new year.
Yeah.
And a prosperous new year as well. Yeah.
Yes. Same to you. If people want to get in touch with you, is there a way they can follow you on Instagram or anything, or Dan's Vaubula boy wear and everything? Do you have?
Yeah. We're on Instagram. There's Vaubula boy, and you can message me as well on Donna CV or Vaubula girl on Instagram. We haven't created the actual name for our new show. Okay. The launching was just an introduction, and we wanted to see how the response would be to South Pacific fashion. And
it was a great response too. It was a really great. I'm so thankful to be part of it. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, it was quite overwhelming. I mean, I think it wasn't, I didn't quite expect everybody to turn up in droves and dress up, and their response to the models was also great. The models and the clothes. It's not your atypical sort of fashion week event where people are really quiet and just observing with their phones.
No, they were straight up islanders up in. They were straight up islanders up in there, a little bit noisy. I can say that because my family are islanders, so we were having a good time at that fashion show for real.
Yeah, an island fashion show there's definitely gonna be some noise. So I'm just glad that the models enjoyed themselves and the parents and everybody who supported it, and they were very they were positive about the event and very responsive to the models that were coming out. And all in all, it was a really great experience for me. Definitely, I want to do a better job next year as well. Yeah.
Well, you did a great job, and I know only great things to come. There is more, right?
Yeah, there's more. There's more.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for having me. It's always good to catch up with you in private and on social media.
And our phone calls too.
Yeah, phone calls and stuff, and yeah.
Yeah, I'd advise people to pick up the phone and actually call and speak to someone during this season. Texting is great, but it's different when you actually hear someone's voice. It feels really good. You actually connect. And me and Donna, we've gotten pretty close this year, and I really believe because of that and FaceTime and stuff too, and technology is just pretty awesome. So I want to thank you, Donna, for being on this and enlightening us, and thanks everyone for listening to the Core.Behavioral Therapist. Bye everyone. Bye Donna.
Bye. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.